Well, when I tell you I have bad news, this time I have really bad news. The President of the United States just signed this order, which essentially removes all independence from independent agencies. Traditionally, agencies like the SEC, the FCC, the FTC, just to name a few, agencies that have very strong regulatory powers and the power to levy very heavy penalties against those that violate the rules, have also been given complete independence. The president nominates the head of the agency and then steps aside. Number one, to avoid the idea of politicizing the agency, and number two, to allow for congressional oversight. This executive order makes all of that null and void. It enacts what's known as the unitary executive, giving the executive branch unprecedented powers, neutering essentially the power of congressional oversight and creating the beginning of the crumbling of the separation of powers. And we can see the fingerprint of Project 2025 all over this executive order. Number one, that unitary executive theory that I was telling you about, it's being heavily promoted by Project 2025 as a way to solidify the executive power over all others. And number two, the executive order vests in the director of the Office of Management and Budget essentially all of the powers to execute the mandate. And you might be wondering who that director is. Well, that would be one Russ Vought, who has been dubbed the architect of Project 2025. Additionally, the wording in the executive order is of grave concern to me, especially these words that I've highlighted, because this to me is what will be challenged in court and what will eventually be used in the Supreme Court case to decide whether or not the unitary executive is unconstitutional. And while the Supreme Court has been traditionally and steadfastly against a theory that says that independent agencies serve at the will of the president, and they have done so since 1935 in this case, the reality is that in 2020 and 2021, the Supreme Court issued two rulings, this is one of them, that suggest an appetite for revisiting the limits of independent agencies. And the wording in this executive order seems to me to have been designed specifically for that purpose. It's been 4 weeks and we're already seeing the dangerous tentacles of Project 2025 wrapping around our democracy. It's going to be an interesting 4 years.